now we are here with our special guest, Amarkine Amarteifio. Welcome to Arts Africa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I notice you've brought your own drink with you.
Yeah, well, I was offered some tea at the reception.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I was actually going to offer you some sobolo, but...
Oh, well, if there's some, why not? Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so after you've done your reading, and if I think it's wonderful enough, I will share my sobolo with you.
Yeah,
Okay, so first of all, thank you so much. I'm sure you're an incredibly busy man, and to have he says to have found the time to come and share your vast years of knowledge. Now you've had over 30 years experience or as an artist.
Yeah.
So when I was, today is also my anniversary.
Okay.
It's 1 month presenting this show. So I was thinking,
wonderful.
look at me. I'm doing party and it's month
Yeah.
and I'm having a guest who's had over 30 years. I mean, it's like 1 month to 30 years.
I know.
But they're both worth celebrating.
Absolutely.
So one of the things is like the kind of books people read, is gives you an insight into who they are and what drives them.
Yeah.
And so I know you're going to read from one of Aikwe Ama's books.
Yeah. Osiris Rising.
Okay. Now, it took me ages. Initially, Aikwe Ama had the same effect on me as Toni Morrison. I couldn't find my way into the book. So, for instance, The Beautiful Ones, it took me 4 attempts.
Oh, wow.
And then when I got into it, that was it. I loved it. I couldn't put it down. I haven't read this book, but I'm looking forward to the piece you're going to read for us.
Yeah. I'm going to read from Osiris Rising, and there's a paragraph which sums up everything that I have come to believing about Africa and what we need to do. And that can be found on page 217 that is in the 9th or so chapter of his book Osiris Rising. And let me go straight away.
Okay.
The African studies in colonial times constituted an ancillary branch of colonial, military, administrative, and missionary intelligence gathering. The colonial study of African society had clear purposes. The principal military purpose was to locate exploitable antagonisms between constituent African groups so that campaigns of military subjugation could be conducted with maximum effectiveness and minimal loss of European personnel and material resources. The administrative purpose was mainly to find out where the fissures and lines of force in African society ran, so as to enhance European penetration and control with a minimum expenditure of metropolitan effort, manpower, and funds. The missionary purpose was ideological penetration, to find out the nature and limits of the African people's ideological defenses in order to facilitate their breakdown, followed by the substitution of Eurocentric doctrines for African conceptions in the minds of growing generations of the conquered people. This is one of the chapters I really like, and then I'll sum it up with a brief statement from the chapter 7, which sums up the educational system. On chapter 7, he says, he begins by saying that the Ministry of Education was a long khaki-colored rectangle, 4 stories high. It was cleverly constructed to shut out sunshine, making electric lighting necessary. This brief statement, sums up everything together with the earlier one I read, that in Osiris Rising, as he was talking about the educational system in the typical African country, he said, and he uses a lot of symbolism, and this for me is one of such symbolism, to show that the Ministry of Education, the institution set up to educate the minds and shape the worldview of the citizenry, was a 3-story building carefully constructed to shut out sunlight, making artificial lightning necessary. And this is something we should all think about. What is it about our educational system or the processes or the institutions where institutions of knowledge construction? What is it about that does not make us effective as a people? This is the crux of what I'm coming to talk about today. And it forms the essence of like what I read earlier on about the African studies.
Yes.
Yeah. What do we know about ourselves and our place in the world? Yeah.
We had an earlier guest, a poet, and I mentioned to him that I went to see I Am Not Your Negro. And we had a discussion afterwards, and one gentleman got up and he said, well, to resolve the issue, particularly, which is specific, well, it's a worldwide issue, but I think it is more severe in America. And he was talking about, well, people need to educate themselves. And so I asked him, whose education?
That brings me to the very essence of what is education.
Yeah.
If you look at the root meaning of the word education, it comes from a Latin word educare, which means to lead out of. To lead out of.
To lead out.
To lead out of darkness or ignorance or whatever. To lead somebody out of a situation which presumably does not help them into a place that is considered helpful. Now there are many questions about this.
I got many
inherently, there are many questions about it. So,
who decides that you are in
precisely. That these are the issues with education.
Yes.
Who decides that where you are is not good for you?
Yes.
And where they are taking you is good for you? Who decides that? So education. So you realize that. Education is extremely political. All politics begin with the knowledge systems by which a society constructs its reality.
Yeah.
Because it is within this framework of reality that you know who you are, you see the world, and you believe in yourself, you define your capabilities and things like that. So who is in charge of that? And who decides that? Who arrogates to themselves the right to lead you out? And who decides that you are in darkness?
Yes.
Who decides that? So that is a crux. So, and until we Africans or Ghanaians get to the bottom of this.
Definitely Africans.
Yeah, Africans get to the bottom of this, we would be going round in circles, because the kind of education that we were given, we have not basically changed it.
But the kind of education that we were given, based on the definition you gave us, it wasn't about taking us out of darkness, it was about taking us into darkness.
Exactly.
And then obviously you don't have the answer, because the answer is multifaceted and
Precisely.
huge. But for us as Africans, after 400 years of interrupted history,
Precisely.
Where do we start in pulling ourselves back into the light?
Well, one of the things I have come to realize is that Africans literally were educated away from their culture.
Yes.
Were educated away from, if you look at all groups of people, Europeans, Asians, whatever, we are the only group of people who are extremely suspicious about our culture. We quarrel about our culture. We argue about our culture, all in preference for other people's culture.
Yeah.
We look down upon our culture.
But that's also 400 years of hard work
Precisely.
on somebody else's behalf.
Precisely.
Somebody else.
Precisely. So, the point
and
of what
we've
I'm
bought into it.
Precisely. The point of what I'm saying is that there is a competition of ideas constantly going on. We have various groups of people trying to woo you to see the world their way. From their worldview, and that has economic and political benefits for them.
Yes.
So it is in their interest to educate you to see yourself and your worldview, or to adopt their worldview. It has,
Because it's a power play.
precisely,
That's what
precisely.
it is.
That
It's
is the
power.
essence of power. To mobilize, to mobilize all the sentiment and all, to mobilize the whole world to look at themselves your way.
Yes.
So that's one of the reasons the Western world has a greater market share in Africa compared to Africans themselves.
Yes.
Because most Africans have a Eurocentric or Western worldview, which dovetails economically into globalization and everything. You find Africans spending more time and energy on European things other than their own, because they have been educated away from prioritizing who they are and prioritizing their culture, or seeing the world from their point of view.
I think also the other thing is, when you do have African leaders who decide to do something, we find them murdered, coups are plotted, and take somebody like Paul Kagame. Obviously,
Precisely.
the West dislikes him and calls him a dictator and everything, but the depths that Rwanda fell to, and in maybe 20 years, people say, well, 20 years is not a short time, but in historical senses, from where they got to where they are now, is a marvel.
Precisely.
And so then, as you said, education is political, because obviously our leaders are all smart. So why? Well, is to their benefit, I suppose, that the populace isn't educated the right way.
Precisely, because whether we are aware of it or we are not, there's always a competition of ideas and the mobilization of sentiments for and against an idea. And at the end of the day, we are constantly being produced. Reality is an ongoing construction, and every society must produce their own knowledge so that they can construct their reality on their terms.
Yeah. But we are at a situation now where I think a lot of stuff in Africa cannot be done on our terms.
It's because much of it has to do with politics, economics, and things like that. And if you look at listen to what I read earlier on about Ikwema, the purpose of African studies, which was started by Europeans, like information gathering, was to gather enough information so that
they could cause us damage.
They could cause us damage, not just the current generation, but the future generations. That's this whole idea of catch them young.
And it's the same thing like you see maybe in the US, when enslaved people were taken over, they split families up.
Precisely.
And you can still see it.
Precisely.
It's
happening.
Still
Yeah.
happening,
Yeah.
You can't get yourself out.
You can't extricate yourself.
Yeah,
from
you're
it.
tangled. So what does Africa do? Do we shut the continent down? Do we say, people, we are under construction, bye, come back in 50 years' time?
Well, there are structures that have been put in place to make this thing nearly impossible.
Yeah.
There are structures but it is possible if we have the long-term view. If we have a long-term view, for example, we can do things like look at our curriculum again. Look at our educational system. What knowledge do we want to give ourselves? We have to own. We have to decide that, look here, this is where we are, and this is where we want to be in, let's say, 50 or 100 years' time.
Which the Chinese do
exactly
all the time.
Exactly. So what do we do to get there? What kind of knowledge do we need to move our people from where they are now to a people who believe in themselves and who, in ways that make them feel they can take on the world? And once we decide this, we would definitely know what we need that will help us and what we do not need. So we put in the structures to ensure this. Others are doing it,
and then even the sacrifices we have to make.
The sacrifices. You can't make omelets without breaking eggshells.
Yes.
We have to make sacrifices. We do have to make, and it is. This is what politics is all about. The politics of the current situation, the politics of the future, the politics of now, the politics of the past. And it all sums up to the politics of what is reality. Who defines your idea of reality? It is within that politics that you have identity construction. Who am I?
Yes.
If you say you're a Ghanaian, if you say you're an African,
But
what does that mean?
What does that mean?
What does that mean? You understand? So these are questions and issues we have to interrogate.
Yes, we do.
If we are really determined to, if we are tired of being where we are, and we are so determined to be over there, then we have to take deliberate steps. It will come at a cost.
Of course.
We may not get there. Our children may go further than we did, and their children probably may get there.
But the journey needs to begin.
It has to start.
The journey
needs
to begin.
to start by noticing that where we are now is the result of the hard work of some people.
Yes.
They have put in so much work to get us where we are, and we can learn from that and undo it on our terms.
And then put in the work to get us to where we have to.
Precisely.
You are a man of many artistic talents, very, very intellectual. But, and I was thinking that last conversation, we could have just kept on it. But we need to talk about you, over 3 decades of artwork. And so, first of all, tell me the different types of arts you do, and then, which one came first and how did it come about?
Okay. Like growing up as a usual Ghanaian kid, like we're doing like drawings, like using charcoal, crayons and pencils, like drawing on walls and paper and stuff like that. And then I remember I used to do a lot of clay work after school. What is known as the alajo, we call it alajo gota,
Oh yes, I know it.
Alajo gota. Like after school we will run, we'll be running inside the gutter. It was so clean. It was so clean back in those days.
That gutter runs through Abofu.
Abofu, exactly.
I lived there, and people who lived there like long ago said they used to fetch water from
Precisely.
there because it was
so clean. You could see, either side of the walls. Very clean, very clean. And so we, as kids, we played inside the gutter, and we'll fetch water, and then come up, on the sides of the gutter, and then dig clay. We dig clay, and then we molded guns and other toys and things like that. We did that after school, and I used to do that a lot. So apart from drawing and things like that, I did a lot of clay work, and then using coconut husk to make pendants and other shapes and stuff like that. So as kids, I did that, and then growing up, and then in secondary school, I used to draw a lot. And those days, we never had. Like looking back now, art was not such a big priority in most of our schools. The priority was on science and other things. And so, like, the usual complaint from parents and peers was that,
he's wasting time.
He's wasting time. Won't you study? Are you going to do this art all your life? Blah, 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 blah.
So art you are going to chop.
Exactly. So I had all that. So, but like wherever I went, people called me an artist because I could draw very well and do stuff with my hands. So, but in secondary school, I took serious art lessons where I did still life, and we used to paint with gouache. Those days we called them gouache, and powdered color, and we add water to it, and stuff like that. So I did all that. And then in Form 5, I made a decision that I'm going to be an artist for the rest of my life.
How did your parents take to that? Because it
didn't come easy.
This is the dilemma of practically everybody who wants to do art in Africa.
Precisely. It didn't come easy. Although in the family I was known as, my talent was recognized. It was not so much supported, and that came from the attitude, like the social attitude, because everybody wanted their children to be a doctor, a lawyer, stuff like that. So being an artist came with a lot of cost. Like you had to be very strong in your convictions that this is what you wanted to do. So I was painting a lot and
starving.
And Yeah, exactly. Like I remember in secondary school, when my parents gave me money, I'll save the money and then go to town and buy art materials and
Materials.
things like that. And during the O level, times and A level times, I was always painting, and I was planning an exhibition. I was planning an exhibition way back in Form 5. So, sixth form, I was not able to do that. In sixth form, I was still planning it. I couldn't do that.
Where were the influences? Where did you get the influences? Because at that age to plan an exhibition, I mean, where were you
Okay.
getting your inspiration and influences
Okay.
from?
Okay. In the early 70s, late 60s, 70s, my parents moved to Abeka.
Mm-hmm.
And my father had a cinema hall. And he was
Oh,
showing films and things like that. And most of the posters for the cinema, for the films,
yeah.
were were artworks drawn and painted
Painted.
by like
Instead
people.
of the posters that we have
Exactly.
now.
Instead of the posters we had today,
Yes.
they were drawn and painted like oils, with oil paint and things. And it fascinated me. It fascinated me. And when we moved to Abeka, I saw like drinking bars. You see a man and a woman seated, and then the woman will be holding it. And these are the things that really blew my mind. It's like, oh, I could do these things. I
Yes.
could do this. But at the time, I was not. I didn't have an idea of what oil paintings were. All I could do was using crayons and pencils and charcoal and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So to do these things, and when the film posters came, it was such a fascination for me. And I said, I could do this. I could do this. I could do it. So it broadened my horizon about art. That artists could do these posters. So in secondary school, I had all these ideas. So I started planning an exhibition. I could not do that in immediately. So in Form 5 or in sixth form, but national service, I was able to do that. So during my national service, I held my first exhibition at the British Council.
Oh, at
Yeah.
the British Council, not
Yes.
even in your backyard.
No,
at the
no, no,
British.
at the
Wow.
British Council,
Okay.
during the national service, and it was during my national service time that one of the ladies I did my national service with, Ifwa Abam, she said, "Oh, let me go to your, take me to your house and let me see your artworks." So I brought her home, and she saw my artworks, and she asked me, "Where's your easel?" I didn't even know what an easel
Easel
was.
was.
I said, "Hey, these people who went to Achimota school and all that,
They are coming to bluff
they
you.
know all these things. Um, so I had to learn. Those days we didn't have Google, which knew everything. You had to, learn by the books and stuff like that. So I was so determined, that after my first exhibition at the British Council, I was so determined to pursue art. So I told my father, I'm no longer interested in going to university to study art, because whatever I'm going to study there, I'm already
You're
doing it. So
doing
I
it
was so
now.
but my father insisted.
Get the qualification.
Yeah. He insisted. So to Tech I went, and I studied art for 4 years and did my masters, and it was where I learned other aspects of art.
Art.
And then
Things that you couldn't just learn from.
Precisely, yeah.
Like theory and
exactly.
things like
But
that.
in all of these things, one of the things I realized looking back was that the best education is the one you give yourself. Like the educational system will teach you things that
What you need to conform.
exactly what others have decided you needed.
Yes.
But and that's the system pretty much. So, but even that, it still equips you to do the proper education on your own and on your terms. So that's what I've come to realize.
So literally, education sort of gives you the skeleton, but
Precisely.
you need to flesh it out
precisely.
with your own.
Precisely. So even for highly educated people, I still insist the best education is the one you give yourself, because you do it on your terms, on your time, and nobody decides whether you are
And at the pace you need.
at
to,
the pace you
'cause
need,
to.
at the pace you need, because there's something about the system that it has done so much good. Education has done so much good, but it has also done so much harm. And we are most reluctant to admit this. There are people who have failed in school but have passed in life. And there are
Yes.
people who have passed in school but have failed in life. The system as it is, it's kind of designed like to one size fits all kind of thing.
Yes.
It does not. It's not broad enough to accommodate the little nuances about human capabilities.
Yeah.
It does not. It cannot. I mean, it does not. It's not matured enough to accommodate all these things. So people struggle in school, and when they are out of school, in fact, it's a common Ghanaian theme that many years after school, many Ghanaians look back and say, "Oh, now I understand what this meant by this theory." Or
But they had to go through life.
they have to go through life, and then everything they failed in school about, or they were taught in school, they say, "Oh, now I understand
It
it."
came to fruition.
Exactly.
They entered the school of life.
They enter the school of life. So what is it about our system of education that does not prepare? I mean, that is so much devoid of the real life.
I
And
think
that is why,
it prepares you for the factory.
precisely, that's why I'm saying the best education is the one you give yourself.
Yeah.
So education is good. It gives you the tools to also create your own stuff for yourself. I mean, suited to your purposes and things like that. So that's it about my artwork. So I do paintings, I do drawings, I do sculpture, I do poetry, I write, I do basically everything.
Everything.
Yeah, I do some carpentry
You're a
as well.
Pan Africanist.
Exactly. Yeah.
An activist, I'm sure.
Yeah, I also write
Definitely.
on social issues.
Yes.
And sometimes even on gender, religion. Yeah, these are things I'm passionate about.
Okay, so before we continue, let's look at some of your artwork, and if you can, talk to us about it. So we're just going to quickly set that up. Your first one is a beautiful piece. You can't actually see it, can you? So I believe I can fly.
Ah,
I believe
I can fly. This is a painting I did, I think, 2 years ago or so, and it's a painting of an old mud house.
Yes.
And but if you have to look closely into the window, and you'd see there's a lady in there, like stretching herself, like to, and it's all very symbolic. It's a way of saying that I can live beyond my circumstances. Like I mean, although I'm in a madhouse, I have the ability to transcend it. Yeah.
And also, it is my mud house.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in your mud house, there's
It
no
is-
landlord who's going to toss you out, or
Precisely.
anybody who's going to
Yeah,
come and
yeah,
talk
it
rubbish
is yours,
to you.
it is your
It is
own.
yours, no
Yeah.
matter what it is.
Yeah. And
I really, I like the colors.
the earth
The
colors.
colors are very earthy, because
Yeah.
you see a lot of paintings, and with Africa, the
Yeah.
bright colors, but I really love these earthy tones and
Yeah.
splashes of white. It's
Yeah.
very, very
Yeah, they are my favorite colors. Like in most of my paintings, I explore earth tones and colors.
What do you have against bright colors?
Well, I use a lot more bright colors in my abstract work. I do
Okay.
abstracts as well. Yeah.
Okay, yes.
I like splash colors and
Okay.
I like the play of like how colors bounce off each other and stuff like that. I like that and the
Nice,
way the
nice.
colors make us feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, because I mean, colors, I think a lot of people don't really look into how, even though they will put on a particular outfit of a
Precisely.
different color, and it just makes them feel, but
Yeah.
they don't collate it
Precisely.
to the
Yeah.
impact of the
Colours,
psychological impact
Precisely.
of
It
the
has
colors.
a very unconscious. I mean, it's subliminal.
Yes.
It's like
Yeah.
yeah, it comes at you in ways you don't realize, and
I
it
love
influences your
love
mood.
earthy tones as well, like
Yeah.
terracotta and
Yeah, terracotta.
oranges and stuff. Okay, let's look at your second picture. The Nima perspective.
The Nima perspective. Yeah, this is a painting. It looks. It talks about the Nima perspective because the whole painting has been composed in a way to focus the eye at the vanishing point where
Yes.
where there's a lady right in the middle there, and it is it is structured in a way. In fact, the painting is biased towards like what we call the male gaze. The male gaze in art, it's like it's a trick where the artist directs. I mean, directs how people would see a particular painting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as a man stands behind the painting and looks at the vanishing point, on your immediate left, there's a window there.
Yeah, I see it.
You see, and then if you peep into the window, you see a nude woman also looking at you, the observer.
Wow.
So whilst you're looking, somebody else is also watching you.
Wow.
But
And
you
then
have to look closely
you
in
have to look
the window
closely.
to see the woman. I mean, she's very subtle. So
You know, this reminds me of when I lived in the UK. I used to go to the Tate Gallery
okay.
a lot, especially on rainy days. And then every so often, when you had a bit of cash, you would rent out those recording devices
Okay.
where they'll tell you you reach the middle of the room, walk forward. Now you are in front of this painting.
Exactly. Okay.
And then they would give you all the little details
Details
that
about-
you would probably miss. But it's like this kind of thing where you're going and it's like, look in this window and there's this woman
This
here.
window there.
This is this thing is hanging
okay.
over there. You know, there's a lot of detail.
Yes. About
There's a lot of detail going on. Do we have another picture,
and
Joe?
and for this particular work, I wanted to draw attention to how we can find beauty in the most ordinary places. I mean, there's so much beauty. I mean, the old buildings, the roofing, the roofing sheets. I mean, the so-called dirty ground, and everything. I mean, all that comes alive, in the
Yes.
artwork. Like it
Yes.
makes you appreciate your beginnings.
Okay, and then let's take a look at the last one, transport and communication.
Yeah. Transport and communication. This is an old what we call trotro. It was popular in the 50s and 60s, and in the late 80s they were replaced by the urban buses from
Yes.
the German burghers who came to town with their urban buses and stuff like that. But
These are the bone shakers.
the bone shakers, yeah. And there was something unique about them, that they had inscriptions.
Yes.
They have inscriptions.
Fear woman.
And save your life. I mean, I hate those things actually.
hate them
Yeah, they're very, very, gender, biased, and no, I mean, like things like "See Me Tonight," and so in this painting, I incorporated most of the social gossip, like what people see, among themselves, and so I incorporated all of them to make a political and social statement. So you have things like it's not him, it's the people around him. They all want some.
Yeah, when you support
Exactly.
somebody and you don't want to accept that maybe they have faults, you want to blame the
people around him. So I have captured all that in that painting. And then there's this very common Ghanian saying, like when it comes to things like certainty, say, "Oh, I don't know, but I'm sure." You have all these sayings right in the painting there. And then first thing Monday morning,
Yes.
and then Ki Sera Sera, and something small for the boys.
Yes, something
So-
small for boys
Exactly.
is still around.
Exactly.
Although now they want more.
Exactly. So we have other things like go and come on Monday.
The go and come really upsets
yeah, go and
me
come,
because
and
you
then
know it's never gonna happen.
it's never going to happen. Yeah. So I capture all these sentiments in the painting, because these are things you see on the trotros, and these things were our way of entertaining ourselves before social media like Facebook and WhatsApp and things
Yes.
came. I mean,
Yes.
this was how we transmitted information so that people would know, I mean, what's going on in society.
Yeah.
We have future allergy,
Future
things like that.
allergy. Okay. So, you've been in the arts business for
Yeah, for a while.
30 years
Yeah,
plus.
35
Okay,
years. precisely,
35
actually.
years.
Yeah.
Tell me about the art landscape then in comparison to now.
Now, well, back then, it was quite young. If you said you wanted to be an artist, people were like, "Oh, don't you have anything else to do?" It was very difficult for, like, parents feared that you won't get. I mean, you won't amount to anything. So it was in the mid 80s that let's say at the university, people realized that artists were making money on campus. We could paint, we could do greeting cards, we could, put our talent to use and make money. When students went on Aluta for like students loan and things like that, we artists did not bother because we had a way of using our talent to make money. So many artists on campus, were pretty much self-sufficient. It was at that point that people started looking at us again. Our parents, our friends, and families were looking at us. Oh, artists could make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And because of that, they realized that there's something in this. So there was a point. There was a time at the College of Art then that we have so many people, applying to do art, just because they realized that whilst artists were, while we artists could, were students, we could hold exhibitions and make money. So, and we didn't depend on our parents, and we could, we could buy, students, as students, we could buy our TV sets, we could buy our sound system, and we could, cars and things like that. They say,
And
Charlie,
show off in front of the
show off in
ladies.
front of the ladies. I remember there was a day I went for class, and I was totally broke. And then around that time, a family from Germany came to visit the College of Art, and they wanted portraits. And they asked the class, "Oh, who can do a portrait for us?" And then they said, "Oh, Amarkine will do it." So then I had a friend, and then she bought paper for me, and then one after the other, I did quick sketches, and
Yes.
then I made, and then they paid me, and it was a big day for all of us because I could spread everybody,
Yes.
and this was the immediacy, like apart from the emotional gratification of you could do something, you could earn good money from it. And since then I've been working on my own, like painting and holding exhibitions locally and internationally.
And because artists today is a struggle.
Yes, it's a struggle because when you finish school, the state says bye bye to you. You are on your own, and artists who struggle to paint or to do work on their own, who found that difficult, will go into teaching or would go into stage design and things like that. The avenues were not many as compared to today. And we didn't have social media where you could advertise your
Exhibit
work.
your work and
Exactly.
stuff.
And there
And
were
have
very few.
websites and
Exactly. We
things.
did none of these things existed, and there were very few places where you could show your work. It was the art center, the Loom.
Oh yes, I remember the
Yeah, the
Loom.
Loom then was at where the current Ghana Commercial Bank is before it moved to its
Yeah, it's a round circle.
circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was a gallery at airport, is it QT by the Kasajans, and then the British Council, they would hold exhibitions. There were very few places,
Yeah.
and so basically we struggled, to showcase our work and stuff like that. But in the 90s, the trend started to change. I remember after school, I had a second exhibition at the British Council, and it was such a success. By the third day, I had sold almost everything. And as news of this spread, other artists were also making a lot of money, or a lot of sales, and then people started realizing that there's
something here.
there's something here. Artists are carefree people. We don't do the usual 8 to 5 job where it is routine and everything. You could find artists just you could make a painting and sell, and you could live off the proceeds for about 2 months or something. So people started envying us. So you had lawyers, medical doctors and people, accountants, who will come
doing
to
a
us and say,
side
"Oh,
hustle."
Charlie, been in your school and drawing. I mean, I
Yeah.
could draw very well, but I had to make money,
Yeah.
so I went into accounting, or my parents wanted me to do law.
Yes.
They come back to us and just listen. Can you teach me something so that because my routine, like my 8 to 5 job, is so boring, and I see you people are like you're
happy.
you're always happy and you're always chilling, and you make money and you're also chilling. I mean, what's the secret? So with that, people started looking at artists again.
Yeah.
They started looking at artists again because there's something about being happy and being right. There's a big difference. Artists are very happy people because we live on our terms. I mean, we are able to do things that made us happy.
As long as you're not starving.
As long as
you're
not
starving.
starving.
Because I think, as you mentioned, back in those days, there was no social media,
No.
whatever. But don't you also think, I mean, I studied film. You went to film school, you know, the cameras were expensive, all those things.
Yeah.
But now, if you have a smartphone,
Precisely.
you can shoot a film.
Yeah.
So getting access to the art world has also become
Broad.
very broad,
Yeah.
and a lot easier. You do not need to be in school for any amount of time. You can pick up your smartphone, you can go to the app store and download different apps and
Exactly.
shoot your movie and
Yeah.
edit, and you've got teenagers, you know,
All doing that.
all
Yeah.
doing that. Do you
Yeah.
think that has diluted?
Well, it has broadened the scope of art and the possibilities, and you can spend time on the internet and do research, because like whatever you learn in art school or in school, everything is on the internet. There's so much information, so
You can
if
do
you
all those courses and
exactly,
everything.
yeah, you can
know.
you can read about art, you can see other people's work as they download them on
And
the
you can
internet.
just experiment.
You can just experiment on your own.
Yeah.
You can just experiment because but many
Because that is the education you're giving yourself.
precisely, but there's a problem I have observed, that much as people people can do this, but they are still trapped with the school idea. People assume that I have to get a formal training in art before I can be confident enough to say I'm an artist. They have not overcome that school effect.
Really?
They have, yes, from my experience with people,
Okay,
they have not
because-
overcome that school effect.
Because I've come across many people, particularly in the audio-visual
Exactly.
world, where anybody jumps up and says, I'm a director. Or they
Precisely.
know how to turn on a camera and say, I'm a photographer. And then
Precisely.
God help you, you take them somewhere and they go and spoil everything
Precisely.
for you.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think with the, as you said, it's expanded with the liberation of
Precisely.
what it is. It's also given certain people a lot of confidence to jump out there with nothing.
I know. There's that side to it. But there are brilliant, fantastic artists who never went to art school.
Yes.
In Ghana
Yes.
and elsewhere. Some, were lawyers or bankers or whatever, and they retired and they started dabbling in art, and then they become fantastic artists. But when you engage them, as you talk to some of them, they still think that, oh, I didn't go to art school, trying to apologize for their talent. And I'm saying, no, you don't need that. You are good as you are. You are good as you are. Some of them are even better than college trained artists.
Yeah.
And they are fantastic. So
Because also an artist, everything, there's a lot of it is from internal.
precisely,
It's about
precisely,
you.
precisely.
This is Arts Africa, but I also think that when people, we talk about the arts a lot, but there's also the business side. So you get people who are brilliant artists, but if you can't get the business side sorted out,
Then
Yeah.
that is the challenge of many artists. It's one thing being so talented, it's another thing marketing your talent.
yeah,
And that side has yet to be developed in our country. It is still growing. we need a lot of a lot more people to go into art history, like writing about artists. I mean, for now, it is journalists who do that, but we need we need people who are specially trained to produce literature on artists, and so that artists can be featured in art magazines and shows like this. I mean, and promoted, and people to handle like the contracts artists will have with people like.
So literally, as an artist, if you're exhibiting and exhibiting around the world, which you've done. Then you literally need a manager, don't you?
You do, yeah.
Literally, like the musicians,
Precisely.
everybody needs a manager to take care of
all
legal
those
and
legal
all
work
of that,
and all that,
while you
copyright issues.
While you focus on
Precisely,
the
and that's, I mean, these are opportunities in the industry. I mean, it's still virgin. I mean, these are areas people can venture into.
I mean, I think also the other thing is because people don't. Well, from what I've seen, and I may be wrong, particularly with musicians, you have musicians who have managers, but you don't actually know what the manager is doing. Because you see somebody goes and does an interview and they're made to look very silly.
Precisely.
And I keep on thinking, did the manager not ask for the questions? Did the manager, what exactly is your manager doing?
Precisely.
So I think people are also of the idea that managers don't do anything. So why do I give 15 or 20% of my money to somebody who's not doing anything?
So these are aspects of the industry that we need to grow.
Yes.
Yeah, it's still very young because I mean, literally, artists are on their own. And so, issues of bread and butter is a major concern.
Yes.
Stuff like that. So over time, I mean, but many young people are venturing into this now, and it's, I mean, in about the next 5 or 10 years, it will be completely different terrain, especially with the internet.
Yes.
Especially with the internet, I mean, there's so much that that artists can, explore, to their benefit.
Okay, I want you to talk to us about Accra for Art.
Yeah.
Because I love seeing artwork around.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, we spoke with Mo Awudu.
Mo.
Okay,
yeah,
and we talked about years ago, I lived in the northeast of Brazil in a place called Pelourinho.
Okay.
And all the houses were painted beautiful, bright colors. And it was like a really bright place. And also in Cape Town, you see places like that.
Yeah.
And so going around Accra and, just seeing this beautiful artwork, pop up. It's beautiful for the beautification of the city. Obviously, that's the first thing. But what was also the other reason at the back of it? What did you want people? Because I think it's beautiful in the sense that usually art is an elite thing. And so when there's art in the streets where you can see it by walking past on your trotro, driving, it gives the average person the chance to relate and to enjoy the artwork,
the creativity of their own people
for free, and you don't need to go anywhere. It is on your way somewhere.
Precisely.
What is it that you want us, the average Ghanaian, walking past this artwork? It's there to beautify the city, but what is it? What do we, the populace, what do you want us to get from it?
Okay, one of the reasons I initiated this program was I realized that I've been to Germany and other places in Europe, and I've seen public art. I mean, like the Berlin Wall, for example. I mean, both sides, east and west, is so with graffiti and all that. So I said, wow. The sharp contrast for me, when I came back to Ghana, was that why is art such a private thing in our country?
An elitist.
An elitist. I mean, if you're in Ghana, you only saw art if you went to the artist studio. Or
an exhibition.
An exhibition in the gallery.
Or a hotel.
Or a hotel. How many of our people can, have access to this?
Yes.
So I remember I sat down with the mayor of the Accra, mayor. Yeah, I sat down with him. I said, listen, why don't we, use art to brand Accra?
Yes.
you know, I mean, because you can use art as a place making, you know, a strategy for making a place, so that when people think about Accra, they think about art.
Yes.
So I came up with the Accra for Art project,
Yes.
where we will brand our underpasses, the bridges, and many
And
places.
even roundabouts.
Uh,
The
ra-
roundabout
roundabouts.
near me has
Exactly.
beautiful animals.
Exactly.
like this. Yes.
We did that. So
Okay.
myself
At
with
CP.
exactly, yeah.
Yes.
Myself with the mayor, with Mo,
Yes.
and then Jennifer. I mean, we drove there one Sunday afternoon and then surveyed the place, and we came out with a concept. And then the Apenkwa Bridge, you know, we came up with
Yes.
all these concepts that only we can do that. And then our efforts were also collaborated with. I mean, apparently there were other groups of people also, you know, having. I mean, who have
Like
the
in
same.
Jamestown, you see
Exactly,
a lot.
exactly. But the Jamestown one happens around the Charlie Water Festival,
Yes.
where everybody, you know, could lay hands on anything and then paint anywhere on the streets, on walls, and things like that. So the idea was to make Ghanaians know that art is something they can live with.
Yes.
Art is something that they can use to tell the story. I mean, the stories of their lives, you know, their struggles, their aspirations, and so to build the Accra they want, to build the city they want, you know, so that when tourists come here, you find tourists taking, you know, like pictures, you know, of their visit to Accra and everything, you know, so that Accra will be known for art. So, I mean, the major was, you know, in favor of this idea, and then we set it rolling.
That's actually quite interesting that
Yeah.
a politician would be.
Oh yeah.
Would be very interested in.
The mayor is quite proactive, and he has a passion for art, and he works with artist groups and I have had tremendous collaboration from the GAVA, I mean, members of GAVA, Paint Ghana, Ghana Graffiti like Mo, and other artist groups. And then, and then the president's daughter as well. They have all come on board to, you know, make this thing big.
Okay, so I think there's all that making this thing big, but then there's also how we get the message to people that it is for them and about them.
That
as
happens.
opposed to something you just walk by.
Yeah, that happens. I mean, that is part of the subliminal. I mean, like the subliminal effect. I mean, as you see all these things,
Your mind will
your
suddenly
mind
start
precisely, so
clicking.
that next time you hear there's an art exhibition, oh, you go. I mean, you visit.
Yeah.
So that when next time your child
know
says,
that it's for me.
precisely, your child says, I want to be an artist in future. So yeah, art is beautiful. It makes things. Yeah, it makes us happy.
Yeah. Okay. Finally, I want to also ask about the contemporary art group, art_233.
Yeah, this is a group we formed of a few selected Ghanaian artists, myself, Wiz, Lariotu, Roger Metelnunu, Safori, Betty Aqua, and who have Lantern Mills.
Yes.
Lantern Mills. So we came together, and actually, what happened was we were approached by Sam Jonah,
Yes.
to, you know, showcase. He wanted the best representation of Ghanaian art in his hotel. I mean, at the Marriott Hotel.
Marriott
So that's
Hotel.
how. I mean, that's how we got formed. So we came up with a list of these artists and to showcase. And then around that time, the hotel was going to host American Chamber of Commerce or something, who were visiting Ghana. So I mean, that is how we went into Marriott Hotel to showcase, you know, the best of Ghanaian art in the hotel, and then we came to stay. So we are the resident, you know, artists in that hotel, and it's a young, vibrant group, and we hold exhibitions from time to time over there. At the moment, most of our works are there, and people can visit. And then apart from this plus Art 233 group, we have other other groups, and we also collaborate with other artists. For example, on the 18th and 19th and 20th of this thing, we are
This month,
December, we are holding a very big show at the Accra International Conference Center, and the public is welcome.
Okay, give us those dates again.
18th, 19th, and 20th of December. Yes, myself, Roger Metelnunum, Wiz, Sami Bentel, Betty
And
Yakwa.
is it free for people to go?
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's
Okay,
open to the
because
public.
this is fantastic.
Yeah,
If anybody listening
yeah,
is interested in
yeah.
starting to do artwork, what piece of advice would you give somebody who wants to be an artist but has said several things to themselves to dissuade themselves from it?
Well, if you want to be happy, be an artist.
Simple.
If you want to be happy and original, be an artist, because most of us are socialized to be what everybody wants us to be.
Yeah.
But if you want to be an artist, art gives you the opportunity to retain as much as possible what you originally are.
Wow. Thank you so very much. We ran over time because this conversation was super interesting. And I know that we could have just gone on, but
Yeah.
I'm going to shut us down at the moment because this is fantastic. So guys, the exhibition 18th, 19th, 20th at the Accra International Conference Center. It is free. If you love the beautiful artwork we've been seeing around Accra, go and see what the artists really do. So I know we gave you 2 songs to choose, but unfortunately, because we are running out of time, we are wrapping up. So guys, I had Amarkine Amarteifio, fantastic artist, educator, serious educator, because what you read and what we discussed is real food for thought. And so the proverb as well, I think you should not allow your own negative self-talk or other people to stop you or keep you on your hands and knees crawling. As my guest here just said, you need to get up and walk. You need to educate yourself and do your thing.